This episode of Make Live is brought to you by DigiKey.
So last week, Nick Normal also dropped by William Thomas Porter's studio in Brooklyn. He's a metal worker with a penchant for bike modification, and he showed Nick some of his creations. Let's take a look.
Becky and Matt, I'm here with William Thomas Porter from PorterCycles, and you're a bike maker?
I make bikes.
Great. And can you show us around your shop and maybe show us some of your special custom bikes? And
Sure. Let's start with some of the weird hack stuff versus some of the more fresh from scratch stuff. We were just discussing a little number called the expert level, which is a dual swivel uni bike in my mind, but it's a unicycle meets a BMX meets a swing cycle.
now I see the seat has a sort of front-facing section, but it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter. It's just a little bit more comfortable between which side's, forward or back in terms of your legs moving, but it doesn't actually have to go one way or the other. You could switch it around while riding. So the whole idea is that you get independent control. You can make really tight, crazy turns, or you can basically, ride in parallel. It's really easy to do tricks where you get to flip it around, and I don't know, it's just sort of an all-purpose sort of like old-school circus design that I kind of stumbled onto when somebody donated me a unicycle.
It says expert level there on the,
yeah,
on the frame.
totally. Triple black diamond.
Great.
Yeah, so the fun thing is that nobody really figured out how to ride it. We sort of built it as a challenge, and then it just sort of turned into the thing that ended up, occupying my lunch break and becoming what I was interested in playing with a lot, so.
Wonderful. That's awesome. And how do you ride it, and what's it for?
What it's for, I think, is to entertain the rider and anybody watching that person ride it. But we actually have come to call this thing the coach bike, because if I'm spinning around on the little uni bike, Adam likes to ride around on this one all up high and tell me what I'm doing wrong. Mm-hmm. So it kind of serves that purpose. I personally, when we first started it...
how do you get on it?
All right, getting on, that's the classic question with tall bikes, but you'd basically put a foot on it, start rolling with it, and then as you're rolling, put another foot up and throw your leg over. Or, if you're my friend Adam, the seat's a little wiggly, but he does this whole thing where he starts like that and literally like leaps onto it, which I've never seen anybody else try, but he actually does it very elegantly too.
Did he make this bike?
No, I made the bike, but he helped. He's sort of like a partner in crime, like, always likes to help. And he likes to ride too, so. But yeah, I think of it sort of as like a Victorian woman, like nice narrow like hip, waist area, like this real elegant kind of form, like this big diving chest line kind of thing, and just classic black,
And it's just one speed, is that right?
Yep, single speed. Dainty little feet, But when the reason why it happened is this whole frame, this little guy, I don't know if people from New Jersey might recognize this section and the very bottom section, because apparently it was a very popular promenade, kids would get one and just kind of like ride around New Jersey Beach, or like at carnivals, they basically like give them out. I found it in a dumpster in front of my house. So this whole section right here and this little section right here, like fit together.
Gotcha.
So the seat used to go a little higher, and it had this silly, like, long, narrow stem and something like that, and those little tiny wheels on it, So it was like, the whole bike was about this tall.
Right.
And so when I found it, I was like, oh my God, I've got to make a tall bike out of that. Yeah, totally. That's about 5 foot tall, isn't it? Yeah. So anyway, so that's how that went, and we basically filled in, this is a section of a bike here, but we just like turned it and set it in here to have a spot to set the cranks in. Made this whole new headset to be super, super long, and then filled in sort of all the extra tubing running around it.
It's got a great shape to it.
Part of the fun is that the cranks, the first normal cranks would have been right here. So if you were pedaling, you'd literally be pedaling like this, like in these tiny little crank arms. So this is the original chain line, and we just welded a cog on where you would normally have another crank arm, and ran that on the opposite side up to these cranks.
Gotcha.
So that's why they're on the opposite side of where they would normally be.
Sure.
Because it transfers down and through. This is the drag bike. This is a drag racing bicycle, and ultimately it's a flywheel-powered tricycle that's sort of a recumbent too. So the whole idea was Black Label puts on a bike kill most every year, and this year one of the events was a drag race. So 3 shops all decided to try to make some kind of bike that was like would qualify as a speedster, that would be like quick off the line, and then whoever made it to the finish line won. I won, and one shop went backwards, one shop got stuck on the line, and I was the only one that actually crossed the finish line. But I rode back with one of my competitors standing on the bike, so I felt pretty victorious over that. But you start up the flywheel. I'm not going to go too fast so that I don't endanger you or anything. And basically, you can go through the gears. So each one of the gears under me right now can switch up until you get the wheel flying at a really, really, really incredibly fast rate. You're going to hear the clutch kick in. So ultimately, you would pedal and pedal and pedal as hard as you possibly could, just like burning your feet as fast as possible, getting that thing moving with as much momentum, as much weight and force driving as possible. And then ultimately, when you were ready, and when I said go, you would let go, I would drop the clutch, and you could feel the force against you right now. You'd fly off the line. I think my philosophy, and a large part of how I get to this kind of work, is I don't like to necessarily go to a source and figure out what they say I'm supposed to do about something, because generally speaking, if I'm trying to do something, it's because I haven't seen it. You know, it's some imagination space there. I'm like, oh, I wonder if that would be cool, or I wonder if that would work. And my personal belief is just an empirical attempts. You know what I mean? The sort of old school, the way the scientific method was found, the way all of these methods were found is just by pure experimentation. And I think when you have the practical ability to experiment with an imagined idea and actually make it happen, it's that triangle I was talking about being artist, designer, and builder, you know, and not looking to archetypes necessarily, or if you do look to them, to find out what about it was most essential to your new need, the new hybrid, and then pulling that out and leaving the edges off, you know. And you try something, you build something, you see how it works, you see how it breaks if it does break, and you know from that, you know, what to do different next time, or what to try to compensate for, or, you know, maybe just to not try that and to like maybe try this whole different method, you know, because it would be better that way. And you know, I think that that's what's led me to want to start building bikes from scratch now and actually build like high performance track bikes and stuff, because it's not, you know, my interest is getting to the point where I don't want to have to be taking 10 steps backwards to take my step forwards. I want to just take 10 steps forward and get there, you know.
All right, well, William Thomas Porter of PorterCycles, thank you so much for showing us around your shop. Yes. And Becky and Matt, we're out.
That was great. Thanks, Nick, and thanks, William Thomas Porter of PorterCycles. That was pretty cool.
That was fabulous.